Passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Franchise Euphoria, the podcast completely dedicated to educating the franchise community with the goal of really trying to help people make smarter decisions in franchising.
Coming up in today's episode of Franchise Euphoria, Josh will discuss two groups that hold the keys to your success, your staff and your customers. Josh will give you tips to keep your staff happy and on how to create raving customers that will keep coming back for more. Up first, how to keep your restaurant staff happy.
Today, we're going to talk about keeping your restaurant staff happy. It's no secret that a large part of franchising involves restaurants. It is the single largest sector in the franchise market. One of the biggest issues with franchise restaurants is turnover. I mean, it's just very, very difficult to keep a staff. And some of that has to do just with the nature of the business. I mean, typically when you're hiring waiters, waitresses, servers, people, front of the house people, and so on and so forth, back of the house, kitchen people, you're hiring typically younger people. And so by its very nature, it's going to be more of a challenge to keep them. And it's more of a transient kind of a process. A lot of people go and work in restaurants to get experience, to make a little bit of money, and then they move on in their life. But one thing that I really thought about was there's really 5 ways to keep your restaurant staff happy. And ultimately that will lead to them staying there longer, or possibly even coming back once they leave, whether they're leaving because, they're done with high school, going to college, maybe they come back in the summers, whatever the case may be. If you can do these 5 things, you're going to be in a good position to not only keep your staff happy, which will absolutely go straight to the bottom line because they are the ones interacting with your customer, but you'll also keep them for longer. The first thing that I want to talk about is just you as the owner being there. That's the number one thing. If you want to keep your restaurant staff happy, you have to be at your restaurant. There is absolutely no substitute for the owner being there. I find that the best restaurant owners are there day in and day out. Now, it doesn't mean you can't take a day off here or there. It doesn't mean you can't go on vacation, but you have to be there. I mean, it does so much for morale. I mean, when a young person sees that the owner is in there getting his or her hands dirty, when the owner is in there cleaning the bathrooms, when the owner is in there doing everything to ensure that it's a great experience for the customer, I mean, that's powerful. Number 2, you have to care, and you have to truly care. One thing that young people are good at is really seeing through BS. And so you really can't fake the funk with them. I mean, you need to be a genuine person. You need to show that you care for them. And, caring doesn't mean being a pushover. Caring means, a lot of times showing the tough love, being demanding, showing people that, especially young people, that this is a significant responsibility, that you're taking care of people. You're providing an experience to people when they come to your restaurant. They're paying to be there for an hour or two. And part of that is the food, but the larger part of it is just the event, the experience of going out. For some people, it's their birthday, it's their anniversary, it's, the first night that this couple has gone out since they had their child, and they're having a date night. I mean, these are really important moments in people's lives, and you as the staff really, and the owner really need to pay attention to that And when an owner cares and when an owner takes notice of those things and really takes care of his or her staff, that really goes a long way to keeping people happy, keeping them motivated, keeping them on task, and really drives straight to the bottom line. Number 3 is you can't be cheap. And I know in the restaurant business, an average, I think waiters and waitresses make $2.14 an hour here in Indiana, and then they make that up in tips to get at least the minimum wage. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that structure. That's obviously the standard in the restaurant business. But as an owner, you need to reward people who are good. You need to reward your staff that goes the extra mile. I mean, you see it all the time in restaurants where you'll walk in and you can notice when one of the staff really cares and really takes pride in what they do. I mean, that's a hell of a good worker, and that's rare. You need to reward those people and not be cheap. So it's one thing to follow the formula, because obviously as a franchise, we're all following formulas and systems and processes. But you have to reward people for good work and not be cheap. That really kind of ties into number 4, which is you have to provide opportunities for advancement. For that person who comes in and may start as a dishwasher in the back, if they do a good job, you need to talk with them about the opportunity of advancement and find out what they want to do. I mean, after all, it could be a high school kid who's, just looking to work there for a couple years, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he or she wouldn't want to advance. Maybe instead of washing dishes, they want to be out on the floor. Maybe if they're out on the floor and they're doing a good job, they now want to be front of house where they have that first impression with the customer. I mean, every situation is a little bit different, but the point is that as the owner, you really need to always be thinking about opportunities for advancement for your staff. And number 5 is promoting from within. I can't tell you how important this is, especially in the restaurant business. There's so many jobs that need to be done on a daily basis for a restaurant to operate efficiently and effectively. And there's no better way to promote than to promote from within. I mean, if you are staying attuned as an owner, you should have a file on each and every one of your staff members, including your waiters, waitresses, dishwasher, everybody. And you should be marking down what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, and be working on those and really hone in on what people's strengths are so that you can try to get them in the best positions. I mean, you might realize that your dishwasher has the best personality out of anybody in the place. Well, then why are they in the back washing dishes? They need to be in front of the customers. So I think that paying attention to that and giving people the opportunity to advance and promoting them from within the organization is absolutely huge to keeping people happy. So quick recap, 5 ways to keep your restaurant staff happy. You need to be there. You need to care. Don't be cheap. Provide opportunities for advancement and promote from within. I am fully confident that if you do these 5 things and just pay attention to these 5 things and look at what you're currently doing right now, I am sure there's certain things that are probably lacking and you're not paying enough attention to. Start paying attention to these 5 things and you will see your staff become increasingly happy, which will keep them there longer.
All right, so now you have a happy staff. What's next? It's time to create some happy customers.
I just love great service, and I love places that really go the extra mile and stick out from above everybody else. It's such a competitive world out there, especially in the restaurant business. And if you are buying or you own a restaurant franchise, you better be thinking about what you're going to do that's going to differentiate you from everyone else. So I've put together 4 ways that you can create raving customers. Not just happy customers, but raving customers, because raving customers talk, and they talk to their family, they talk to their friends, they go on social media, and that drives more people to your business, and it drives them back to your business, and they become marketing mouthpieces for you and your business. And I think the number one goal of every restaurant franchise should be to create the raving customers. Well, how do you do that? I think there's really 4 ways that you can do that, and possibly more, but I've kind of limited it down to 4. I think if you implement these 4 things, you will be on your way to creating raving customers. Well, number 1 is you have to pay attention to the details. May seem obvious, but we've all been in situations where you go to a restaurant and the seats are dirty. You go to a restaurant and maybe the table's been wiped down, but it's all wet with all the soapy whatever water and everything. It's kind of like, I mean, that's not a good experience. I mean, a restaurant that takes notice of the details doesn't have those situations arise. And paying attention to the detail does not just mean paying attention to the food. That goes without saying. I mean, paying attention to every aspect of your restaurant. I am absolutely blown away by the number of businesses that don't do that. And maybe they succeed in spite of themselves, and maybe they have been in business for a long time, but they don't have raving customers. And if you want to create a raving customer, I mean, you need somebody who's going to drive out of their way to come to you because they had such a great experience. You need somebody who's going to leave your restaurant and go call 3 people and say, man, I just had the best experience at this restaurant. And I don't care what restaurant you have. You can have a quick service fast food restaurant. You can have a casual dining restaurant. You can have a fine dining restaurant. If you pay equal attention to the details in any of those, you are going to separate yourself from the pack. Number 2 is go the extra mile. Don't just do what people expect you to do. Do more. And, you know, in a restaurant, there's a million different ways you can do that. I mean, you are in the customer service business when you are in a restaurant, and every single patron that comes in, every family that comes in, every person that comes in, you should be asking yourself, how can we go the extra mile to take care of these people? And I would almost recommend implementing something that you do. You know, if you have, for instance, a family that comes in with young kids, have something that you do that's different and unique for those kids, because that's going to make the parents happy. If you have elderly people come in, go the extra mile to take great care of them. Give them a free dessert. I mean, do something that's going to show that they care. And, you know, the thing I always see in restaurants, which is always kind of interesting to me, is that, you know, if the restaurant screws up on something, it goes without saying that the customers would expect either a discount on their meal or a free meal. And a lot of times restaurants feel as though, oh, we went the extra mile. We provided them a discount. We provided them the comped meal. But it's like, well, you screwed up. So of course that's what you're going to do. How about if you do something when it's not expected? And I'm not necessarily saying that it always has to be comping the meal, but something where in the customer's eyes, it says to them, wow, these people are paying attention. These people are going the extra mile to make my experience a great experience. Number 3 is ask for customer feedback. And do it in a authentic and meaningful way. I mean, we've all seen those surveys that, you know, are little cards at a table and you just kind of willy-nilly fill them out. I mean, have your manager, have the owner, have somebody in charge on staff to go and get actual customer feedback. a lot of times just getting people to check off boxes and so forth, you really don't get that much information. You really need to talk to people. And I think you really have to go above and beyond what you typically see, which is a manager or an assistant manager that will walk around and in the middle of your meal just come by and say, hey, is everything okay? It's like, yeah, it's fine. Okay, great. Well, enjoy the rest of your meal. I mean, that's obviously fine. That's nice, but that's kind of expected. That's not going to create a raving customer. Okay. But if you ask for feedback in a way in which you show that you truly and really care, then people will give it to you. And you need to be willing to accept the good with the bad. And in most instances, when you get bad feedback, that's your opportunity to create a raving fan. That's your opportunity to improve upon things so that you can ultimately improve the customer experience. So you need to ask for customer feedback. And the fourth thing that ties into that is you need to listen to the feedback and implement suggestions. Obviously, you can't operate a restaurant willy-nilly and just implement every suggestion that somebody makes. But you really need to show that you care. You really need to listen to what your clientele is telling you. There simply is no better way to gauge how you're doing as a business. There's no better way to understand what your customers are thinking. I mean, think how incredible that is. I mean, people, as an example, in the online space, are always trying to find out what their customers and potential customers think because they're not in front of them. It's online. Here you have a business where your customers are coming in and you have an opportunity to engage them and find out what they really think, find out what you can do better. And when you listen to that and you implement that and find out a way to communicate that to the customer and say, hey, we really took note of what you suggested that we did, and here's what we're doing to do it. That creates raving customers. That creates raving fans, and that makes you stick out above and beyond everybody else. So pay attention to the details, go the extra mile, ask for customer feedback, listen, and implement. If you do those four things, you will be well on your way to creating raving customers, and that will go straight to your bottom line. Until next time, happy franchising.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.